Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
I'll start. Pretext never green texted so sorry of trash. Me 17, middle of summer, meeting family in North Carolina. They live just off the Great Smokies. Get to know my cousin and her family again. They are all super hippies and the kids all believe in fairies and stuff. Don't care, love my family, no room in the house for me to sleep. Screw it, camping would be fun anyway. Mountainman.jpg. Tired, ready for sleep. Shower and go to the tent. Feel watched. Paranoid as hell, get in the tent, safe.jpg. Watch YouTube on my phone since I can still get Wi-Fi from the house. Hear something moving. What the dickens? Shine my light through the tent walls. Take headphones out to listen for movement. Dead quiet, turn the light off, lay awake in a tent for an hour listening intensely. Fall asleep. Check around the tent. Some bent brush. Fast forward again. Talk with cousins' kids. They talk about skinwalkers and stuff. These kids are like 5, 7, and 8. In the tent again, the same paranoid feeling came through the woods. Think it makes me nervous at this point. Go to bed because I'm excited to hike tomorrow. Wake up in a pool of sweat, check my phone, 3 a.m. Get out of the sleeping bag and try to cool off a little, feel really uneasy. Click my light on. See nothing, I'm going schizo.jpg. Lay down again and turn the light off. I've heard coyotes, moose, elk, bear, and even deer scream, but this was like a woman. Elk and coyote there, throats slammed collectively in a car door. Decide to grab bear spray. Sit in pitch black holding the bear spray. Subtle smell of feces from the opposing corner of the tent. Sit like this for 2 hours, sun peak, the smell gone. Thank the Holy Ghost. Pass out till 11 and completely miss hiking. Cousin thinks they ran me around too much yesterday, explain. Her face drops. Tells me to maybe sleep inside tomorrow. Ask why she refuses to elaborate. I decided to sleep outside again. Mama didn't raise no coward and I'm a mountain man now. Fast forward again tonight, walking to the tent after a shower. Same paranoia this time, much worse. Woods are silent tonight. Nothing for the next 2 nights, but this happens every time going out. Let my guard down tonight, comfy on my sleeping mat, watching YouTube again. One earphone in only because I'm paranoid. Hear a soft kind of scratching, like a dog asking for pets almost. Whatever.jpg. Gets louder and more intense, still don't care. Something is now digging under my mat, shoot up, it doesn't stop. Mama in fact did not raise no coward. Stomp on that, telling it to fuck off. It stops. Smells like piss under my mat now. Not animal piss, but like urinal piss. This happens for the rest of the trip. Tried bringing it up to my cousin many times. She always said to not worry about it, and it was probably a coyote. I know for a fact that it was not a coyote. A couple miles or so up was a cave, not naming to not dox my cousin. It was rumored that Heya Hoya people met the devil there to make deals. Still have no clue what that was to this day.
How the hell do you shoot up inside the tent if there is a threat outside? It would make you even more vulnerable with that hole now there, dumbass. Your fanfic makes no sense.
To shoot up is an American expression, might just be an English-speaking expression, meaning to quickly sit up from a lying position. Anon didn't shoot through his tent. I don't think he even had a gun.
Not exactly Innawoods, but close enough. Never green texted so chill. Be me about a week ago. Work early mornings at a factory in a mountain town. The town is surrounded by national parks and mountains with lots of Native American tribes. Be working around 5 a.m., need something from the warehouse. The warehouse is a separate building about 300 yards from the main factory and has a thick wooded area behind it. Looking for a forklift guy because I need to move a heavy pallet of junk. About halfway to the warehouse, I hear a guy screaming from behind the building near the woods. Real, terrifying, raw, screaming from a man. Sounds like he's saying, "Get away from me. No, stop." Get a feeling of primal danger. Pocketknife.webm. Worried it might be our forklift guy, so I start looking around for him and calling his name. "Anon, you out here?" No response. Search every warehouse suite and he's not in there. Screaming goes on for about 60 seconds and sounds like it's on repeat. Same exact words and tone every time. I decided to GTFO because I don't want to get skinwalkered. As I'm walking away, the screaming stops, and at the same time, the forklift guy walks out of the warehouse. I definitely searched that room. He was not in there. He tries talking to me, but he's being really weird. He went home sick that day. I haven't seen him in a week. Did my coworker get replaced by a skinwalker?
Yeah, I'll humor this thread with one of my experiences. No green because this isn't my spooky Greentext YouTube. While I was at Fort Hood, my first sergeant made a big deal to tell the new arrivals and baby privates to get out and have fun on the weekend and not stay in the barracks during their time on the base. He mentioned hunting, fishing, movie theaters and gyms, as well as anyone being allowed to hike the tank trails. Just stay away from the ranges. Decided to do the hiking thing. Saturday, I head out after lunch for just a walk along the tank trails, not doing the spur ride, hiking up any incline or anything like that. It's a short walk to get on the trail up the little mountain from where our company was. Spend hours walking along the trails. A striker platoon passes me and I wave. I see some birds, a roadrunner, some squirrels. I'm feeling great. Turn around and start heading back after walking around for like 3 hours, getting a little tired. Should be like just after sunset I get back and I can shower and go to bed, right? I kind of lose where I came from because of the multiple forks my dumbass passed without remembering which I chose in what order. Just keep going in the direction down off the hills towards the tops of buildings I can see. Bump into a few dead-end training areas I don't recognize. Nobody around. Sun is setting and I'm still not that close to getting out of the woods. Come to another empty training area and just decide to walk through it towards the lights made by the rest of the base I can see in the sky. I keep walking and just go through the actual woods to go in that direction. No trail. After getting scraped up by some thorny bushes, I come out on the other side to another tank trail, and I turn to walk down it. As I take my first few steps on that new trail, I hear someone call out from a good distance behind me in the training area. Hey, I think I'm in trouble because someone was going to start using the area or something. I turn around and call hey back. Silence. I called again with what's up or something, still more nothing. I stand there for like a minute before I keep going. I can tell I'm actually getting closer to the base because the trails near the entrance of the whole training grounds are the most worn down and got this super fine powdery white dust from the tracks grinding it down. Like half an hour goes, it's fairly dark by now and I hear again, hey come here. This time just off to my left sounds close. I stop and answer what's up, who's there, etc. Nothing despite repeated attempts. Keep going. I'm creeped out officially. Hey, come here, calls out again from my left, still just as close as before. I don't stop, but keep answering like, yeah? What? Hey, come here, answers me back. Don't feel like going towards it at all. Pick up my pace. About once every 5 minutes would call out 2 or 3 times, and it keeps getting more and more frequent until it's just sporadically sounding off. Still just as close to me somewhere off in the woods, off the trail, despite the distance I've traveled and the curves I've gone down. I pick up the pace to a light jog as I get closer to one of the bigger splits in the trails that lets me know right where I am, and I'm only a few minutes jog from pavement and streetlights. After like a minute of me jogging, then the calling starts to roll over itself in rounds like a bunch of people are saying it in the same voice over and over out of sync, still following my left side just in the pitch black of the woods along the way. Start fully running when I hear that, and I go on for what feels like forever until I can finally see the end of the trails and the start of the roads, and the calling turns off like a switch. Silent all at once. I keep running until I'm under a streetlight, and I continue walking until I get to my barracks room. After I wash the sweat and dust off, I just collapse into bed and knock out. Didn't walk around there again.
Winter camping with my friend. Middle of nowhere, North Manitoba. My friend is part native. Almost a full day from civilization by snowmobile. Friend wants to show me natural wonder, like a half-day snowshoe hike one way. Leave at dawn. 2 hours into the journey, stop for a piss. Notice a large mound in the middle of the snow flat. Friend says it's probably a snow-covered rock. Forget about it. About an hour later, I noticed another snow lump. Notice more and more as the hike goes on. My friend is confused. Then stops, mumbles to himself in native tongue. Turns and says, "We have to go." Yells something angry in native at the snowlumps. Start going back with haste. Look back. I swear to God. I saw one of the snowlumps sliding around. Past pissing stop snowlump spot. No longer there. Friend has been yelling native at snowlumps the whole way back. Get back to camp. Friend refuses to tell me what that was. Only says we went where we shouldn't have.
Heard this story from a buddy of mine. Isn't mine, but I'll be telling it like I'm him. So sorry if it sounds weird or anything. Be me at 13, middle of summer break, going camping with some buddies and one of their dads. That was a fun summer. Tents, campfire, all in a clearing with some logs and such. Clear out large logs and some mushrooms. Friend's friend that I never met stuffs the mushrooms in a bag. Hey man, what are you doing? Dude stares at me for a second and just continues to collect mushrooms. All right, whatever mushroom man. Setting up tents. I got mine up first. Hell yeah, I'm the king. I win you chumps. Buddy comes up to me. Hey, you see, insert name. He keeps ripping up mushrooms and shit. Let's call mushroom dude Randy and my buddy Dan. Yeah, man, he just stared at me when I asked him what he was doing. Dan nods and continues. Yeah, I stepped on a mushroom and he cursed me out, pushed me off it and took it. Both agree that Mushroom Kid is either weird and insane or just really likes mushrooms. Night rolls around and I'm laying in my tent. Coyotes in the distance. Shut the hell up, you rats. Eventually fall asleep. Have a freaky dream about the camp being ripped up and some lady is dancing in the middle of it. Wake up. Brush it off as just another dream. Get up and open my tent. Grab Pepsi from the cooler and sit by the fire. Still going because Dan's dad was still up. Call him DD for Dan's dad. Dumb, I know. What are you doing, Dan's dad? Oh, hey, Anon. Just keeping the fire going. Coyotes are close and don't want them in camp. Makes sense. Finish Pepsi and put it in a trash bag. Go back to sleep in my tent. Wake up the next morning. Dan is making a s'more for a small snack. You do you, buddy. Go for a small walk in the woods. Peaceful, taking in the natural beauty of the wood. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Sounds like footsteps behind me. Spin around. Nothing there. Holy shit, maybe I'm schizo. Nope, out of there because I've read too much on X. Footsteps behind me as I'm going back to camp. Yeah, I just love being chased by some unknown creature or entity. Get to the edge of camp, and footsteps stop. Thank you, Lord, for not letting me die. Rest of day is uneventful. Don't leave camp again for the rest of the day. Randy eyes me up strangely as I get back. Something wrong, Anon? Randy asks, first time really talking to me. Yeah, I'm all right. Don't worry about it. Felt more like he was interrogating me than asking about me. Go to bed that night, same dream, wake up at the same time. Feels like I'm going insane. I can hear footsteps around camp, my tent and the others. Screw it. Need something to tell around a campfire when I'm older. Open the tent zipper slowly. Holy shit. Randy is passing by my tent. What the hell are you doing, Randy? No response. Just keep walking around camp randomly. Get out of bed, making my tent shuffle. Randy spins around at me. Its skin is loose, eyes sunken, slack jaw. I'm frozen still, terrified as not Randy stares into my soul. Anon, what's going on? It's Dan's dad standing a few feet away. Dan's dad spots not Randy and goes wide-eyed. He goes straight into save defenseless child mode and socks the side of this thing's head. As Dan's dad fist connects, there's an audible crack. Thing immediately lets out an ear-splitting screech and bolts into the tree line. Dan's dad grabs me and tells me to grab my stuff. Dan and real Randy get up due to the screech. We all pack our shit and book it to the car, leaving the cooler and tents. A screech is heard in the distance, then multiple. We pile into the car and Dan's dad floors it out of there. Dan begs me to explain. I explained what me and his dad saw. Randy goes completely pale and mutters something about how they aren't allowed to do that. What the hell are you talking about, Randy? He goes on about how he used the mushrooms to do a ritual to protect us against them. I call bullshit and just say he is crazy, because it obviously didn't work. Get to town an hour later and Dan's dad drops me off. Parents are confused because it's late and we were supposed to stay there some more days. Make an excuse about how Dan got sick and we had to leave. That's all my buddy told me, and I asked if that was really it and if he smelled copper or whatever, and he said no, just saw that thing that was acting like Randy or was trying to be Randy. And if you're wondering, he did tell this while we were camping at a different place, so I was pretty spooked. I personally don't like messing around with that stuff, and the shadow guy was the only thing I've only ever personally experienced.
A week-long camping trip, down on a little river bend. Ridgeline and tarp. Hear my name. Whistles in the dark first night. Don't answer back. Gets closer every night. Night 4 of 7 sounds like it's outside my tarp. Machete in hand, calmly walk behind the tarp. Nothing but a rancid smell and deafening silence. Announce to the dark that I am welcome on this land. I will walk where I please in comfort. The smell fades and silence seems to lift. I can slowly begin to hear the peepers and various bugs again. 3 nights of the most peaceful night fishing, followed by deep sleep.
Same anon that posted Shadowdude. but I thought it would be cooler to have one big thread of stories, so I'm gonna repost my story here. Believe me or not, your choice. Be me at 13. Be asleep. Wake up at around 2 a.m. My mouth is as dry as the desert. Get up and get some water. My house has a sunroom and is all open. Sunroom, dining, and kitchen is all open and connected. Gulp down the water. This is amazing. Walk back to my room. Immense sense of dread, like pure terror throughout my entire being. Turn to the sunroom. 7 or 8 feet tall shadow figure standing right outside the window. I'm around 15 to 20 feet away from this window. Lifts finger up to the glass. Tap, 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 pause. Tap, tap, tap. My brain telling me to run. Body won't let me. Shadowdude smiles at me. I blink. I see a blur of movement as I open my eyes. It's gone, and so is the sense of dread. Run back to my room and just sit in my bed under my blanket until sunrise. Tell Mom. Doesn't believe me and says I was probably dreaming. Wow, okay, screw me and my schizo ass then. My face when I think I'm schizo. My face when I find a small single scratch mark going downwards on the window.
Canoeing back in the day. First stop, camping near the river. Next morning, find our sleeping bags encircled multiple times by bear tracks. Nothing else was messed with, just circling around us as we slept. Later in the trip, set up camp further along the river, even more away from civilization. Take a canoe out for the day. Return to camp, all of our stuff has been gone through and laid out. Not neat and orderly, but also not just thrown around, more like it was all being displayed for us to see. Nothing is missing or broken or anything. No food is gone, nothing torn up. I know what's out there. We're just a petting zoo to these people.
My mom and dad were both avid hikers before I was born, and when I was a little kid they used to tell me this story as both why I shouldn't go off into the woods alone and why they left Arkansas. B mom, mid-20s, hiking on trail with boyfriend, my dad. Getting late, they haven't reached the end of the trail, so they decide they might as well just head back now. Gets dark way faster than they expected. Granted, this was mid-fall. Luckily, they have flashlights, but still walking through the woods at night is never a comfortable experience. Mom and Dad just chatting about how they've never been on a night hike before. Dad starts trying to scare Mom with urban legends. Mostly just a botched retelling of the Blair Witch Project, but Mom's laughing it all off. There's a lull in their conversation and something clicks for both of them. They can hear bushes rustling, but not any wind or any animal sounds. Mom gets a chill up her spine and tells Dad to stop. They start looking around, Dad instinctively pulling out his pocket knife just in case Mom screams. A bare naked elderly dude covered in scars is stepping out from the bush, just smiling. Immediately he sprints off after Dad points a flashlight in his face. They both just stand still as they hear what sounds like hundreds of bare footsteps on either side of the trail running off. Mom and Dad break into a sprint to get back to their car. Dad swears to this day he saw the same old man in the rearview mirror of his car, hands drenched with blood before they peeled off. Mom never saw the old man in the rearview, but earnestly believes my dad.
Beamy 12 years old family moved to New Jersey. Read a book at the library on Jersey Devil. Pine barrens surround my suburban neighborhood with old cranberry lakes. One time take the family dog for a walk on dirt roads through pine barrens. It's getting darker. Making my way back along a dirt road to the lighted neighborhood I live in. Woods all around, and to my right past the woods is an old cranberry lake. Hear what sounds like metal scraping coming from the woods at high tree level. Starts sounding like shrieking. The body and brain freezes to process. The inner voice suddenly says, "Jersey Devil, run." The dog and I ran as fast as we could down the dirt road to reach the paved road-lighted neighborhood. Run a quarter mile to reach the paved road and streetlights and a feeling of safety. Turn around and stare back down that dark road. Never go into the pine barrens after dark again.
So what happened was, I'll give you a little backstory. It was back in 2003. I would have been 15 or 16 at the time. It was in late fall. We were training for a high school cross-country team. So the guys that were with me, their names were Liam, Greg, and Jeremy. And my father, Stephen, was the coach. What we would do was 2 or 3 times a week. We'd go out and maybe go for long runs for cross-country training. So after school, my dad drove us to Green Hill Provincial Park. It's kind of a woody area, there's not really much around. a few farms. We were going to do some hill sprints up there. If anyone's familiar with the area, there's a spot where we'd stop for spring water. So we stopped in there and got some spring water, did some warm-ups, and ran up and down the wooded side of the hill. Then we went to the south side of the hill and ran up to the top. It's a little over a kilometer run. It's really, really steep. Where this happened was on the east side of the hill. On the top of the hill of the provincial park, it has a really nice lookout. They say you used to be able to see most of the county from there when it was a fire tower. So we were up there, we just finished our run, and this would be important later. I was the fastest. And then it was Liam, then Jeremy, then Greg. Not that he was slow, just that he was slower than us. That will come into play later, so we got up to the top of the hill. We had about a half an hour to kill, so my dad basically said, just go do something in the park. There's not much to do. There are some old picnic tables and a pond, so we decided we wanted to go to the east side of the hill, which is very, very, very steep. It is particularly wooded. If you look at it on Google Maps, it's just small trees, very steep. It leads down towards the area where the spring was, so we're not totally unfamiliar with it, but we hadn't gone from the top all the way to the bottom on that side of the hill before, so we thought that would be a good idea. We told Dad we're gonna head up the hill. He said, okay, you only got about 35 minutes. So you know, it's pretty. It's gonna take a little bit of time to get down there. So we were like, oh, we'll be fine. We were winded from doing these hill sprints. I'm a little tired, so we head down the hill. There's a bunch of 15-year-old boys being guys in the woods, but so steep at some points that we actually almost fell from tree to tree to get down the hill, which was really treacherous on its own. It's late fall, so it's slippery leaves on the ground and it's a little bit wet. On the way down, not a whole lot of anything happened. There were standard wood noises. We could hear a pair of dogs barking off in the distance. We assumed they were a pair of farmers' dogs or something like that. We get to the bottom of the hill and it's deathly silent. We get out on the road. There are no cars, no wind. The dogs have stopped barking, it's just deathly silent. And it was a little eerie. The first reason why we panicked was because we only had about 10 or 11 minutes to get back to the top of the hill. It had taken us 20 minutes to go down the hill, so we assumed it would take a lot longer to get up the hill and my dad would freak out. He's a pretty laid-back guy, but, you know, you try to hit your time. We didn't want him to get worried about us or anything like that. So we got to the bottom and it was to the point where we made a note of it. There had been normal wood noises all the way down, birds chirping, leaves rustling, and things like that, and it was deathly silent, and that was really weird. So we all kind of took stock of the time and we'll pick up the pace on the way up, but we were tired. It was humid out, like it was one of the hot October days where it was wet and hot. And so, we start heading back up the hill. I was in the front with Jeremy, we were just chatting. Liam was about 10 feet behind us, or 10 meters behind us, and Greg was 10 meters behind him. So Greg is 20 meters behind me, and we're walking up the hill and it's deathly silent. No one is really talking that much because we're all out of breath and we are going up this hill. Again, it's the opposite of going down the hill, honestly. But when you're going up the hill, in some parts you have to hold onto a tree and pull yourself up and grab the next tree and pull yourself up. It was thick and very steep. I can't explain how steep it was. I can't exaggerate it. It was really steep. So we're there and we hear Greg call out from behind us. He goes, "Hey, did you guys hear that?" And it had been very quiet. And so we all stopped where we were. Nobody moved and we all kind of cocked our heads to the side and listened to what he had heard. And none of us heard anything. We shrugged it off and we all turned to go back up the hill. We were maybe not quite a third of the way up when this happened. We didn't even get to take another step before Greg said, No, there it is again. Listen, it sounds like a baby crying," which is an odd thing to say, so we all kind of pay attention. My first thought was that it was a rabbit caught in a snare or something like that, because they have that weird wounded cry, so I thought maybe it was a rabbit caught in a snare out here in the woods. So we stopped to listen and Greg's staring at us and we're all looking back down at him. And then we hear this tremendous roar. Like I won't try to make an impression of it because I would never do it justice. It didn't sound like a big cat, like a lynx or a cougar or anything like that. And it wasn't a bear, and I know this because after, we went through all these things to try to figure out what it was, and it didn't really fit the bill with any of them. What startled us wasn't the actual sound, but how loud it was. It was so loud you could feel it vibrating through your chest, like a bass at a concert. And it came from down the hill, so as loud as it was to me, Greg was 20 meters closer to this noise. He looks up at us and his eyes go huge. And later on, after we all sat around and talked about it, my cousin Jeremy turned to me and he told me that all the color drained out my face. I turned very, very pale. Before any of us could react, Liam sprinted up past us. Your first instinct is to fight or flee. This was kind of the flight option. We were running away from whatever this was. None of us could see anything. So we heard this noise and we all just started running. Some words may have been exchanged, but I can never remember what was said. Probably something really cheesy like from an action film. But Liam sprinted ahead of us and he was jumping from tree to tree. Greg started sprinting and my cousin and I started running. Greg was so scared he caught up 20 meters and passed us. He was going so fast. And then what happened was he slipped and he fell. I didn't see it. My cousin saw it. He gave me a tap on the shoulder as we were running and he said, "Greg fell." And we looked back and Greg's tumbling head over heels, his feet flying everywhere. I can't say he ended up further down the hill than when he started, but it seemed that way. I just looked him right in the eye and I remember saying, "Greg fell. Greg's dead." And we left him. 100%. He never let us live it down. This was kinda like how scared we were. It wasn't like a funny thing, we were running because we had no idea what was yelling at us and chasing us through the woods, up this already steep hill, and we were already tired. So we're pretty much running on adrenaline, so we abandoned Greg to whatever the noise was. We head up the hill and we get to the top. Liam gets up first. Jeremy and I almost came up together. We were all dirty and a little bit cut up from running through the underbrush and things like that. We were out of breath and sweaty. We all turned to look for Greg. My father didn't know what was happening other than the fact that I think we were almost late. So we came out of the woods and he said, "Is everybody okay?" And then we looked back and he said, "I heard somebody yell and I thought maybe somebody had twisted an ankle or he might have broken a leg because of how guttural and loud the noise was." We didn't really say anything because we were still waiting for Greg or whatever made this noise to come out of the woods. So we stared back into the woods and then all of a sudden we heard some rustling and there was Greg. He comes out and he's got leaves in his hair and dirt and cut up. His eyes are still the size of grapefruits. He doesn't say anything. Dad kinda gave us a look and he said, "What was the noise?" We all looked at each other because we were surprised that he could hear it. The hill is so deep and so dense that if you walk 20 or 30 feet down the hill and yell at the top of your lungs, the people at the top of the hill won't be able to hear you because the sound just bounces away from the... I don't know the science behind it, but you can't hear very well down the hill. We were not even halfway down the hill and he heard it clearly enough that he thought one of us got hurt. He also said it sounded human enough that he would mistake it for one of us, and he's a hunter. Like a deer, moose, the whole 9 yards. He would recognize if it was a standard animal sound. He wouldn't mistake it for humans. He heard what I call a roar. He heard that. The noise that scared us is what he heard up the hill. Because we didn't really say anything. We didn't really scream. We were too busy sucking wind trying to get up the hill. We didn't have a lot of breath to communicate other than to agree to leave Greg behind. There wasn't much that was said. My father gets confused because he knows he shouldn't have been able to hear it down the hill. Also, I'll add that we made it back on time. So we made it up the hill in half the time it took us to get down the hill just running on adrenaline. So we weren't actually late getting back. So he's standing there and you could actually see the wheels turning in his head. He's trying to figure it out and he goes, "Oh, okay, you know what, there's this other group of teenagers that are kicking around here somewhere. Maybe a few years older than us." He goes, "They were probably just screwing with you guys." At the time we were like, oh yeah, maybe that's what it was, but as the words are leaving his mouth. The very group of teenagers he's talking about coming out of the side path that runs north to south, so it's nowhere near the face of the hill that we were on. And it goes out to this farmer's field that's 400 meters away or something like that, and they are not connected, and these kids are laughing and joking, and there's no way they could have yelled from behind us and then got to the top of the hill and not been covered in sweat and exhausted or whatever. But they just came out of the side path, and my dad kind of gives them a look and gives us a look and then nods and says, "Everybody is going to get in the van and start off back to town." We never really talked about it on the way back. Everybody just kind of watched the woods. You know, watched the trees go by as we drove home, and so we never really talked about it until the next day, and Greg was understandably a little upset at us, the whole leaving him for dead thing, but as we talked about it, we couldn't place the noise, and as Greg made it up the hill, he was pretty adamant that something was chasing us. It wasn't just like a warning yell, whatever it was. We got out of the area and it was fine. He was pretty confident that something was chasing us. We all got the feeling, you know. You walk into your house and something's wrong, like the painting's twisted and you think, oh, there's somebody in the house. It's like that kind of sixth sense. Like something is chasing me, and if we stop moving, something bad is gonna happen. So we all got that feeling of being chased up that hill. For years and years it will come up. We'll all start talking again. We'll do our own little research and stuff. We'll do research and we'll try to pin what we heard to what is available on the internet, but we can never quite place it. We have for years maintained that ever since the incident, more or less, we maintained that it was a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot. From what we researched on the internet, it's actually really hard to find noise files for that. A lot of it is hoots and whistles, but there was one someone found a few years ago that sounded extremely similar. It's like a human yelling. Imagine an angry, huge human screaming at you like the mountain from the Game of Thrones or whatever. It wasn't human, it was humanoid or whatever. You could mistake it for someone, but it was so loud and like there was this weird octave or something. It didn't quite strike you as being just a guy yelling or a person yelling. It was just something more about it. I can't quite put my finger on it.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.
There's also a Rumble archive as a backup.